Welcome back to Cocktails and Classics. I'm Dylan. Joining me, as always, is Ben. Hey.
Hey, as always, except for last time.
Yeah, except for last week.
When he's not traveling for work, it's Ben!
And this week, we're tackling The Truman Show. Ben wanted to do a comedy. We kind of did a comedy.
What's weird to me about this movie, alright, I know this is out of the normal spiel of things. This movie's listed as a sci fi movie, and I don't agree with it.
It's kind of, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, but you can't have that be the predominant when it comes up. The first
no.
thing is sci-fi drama comedy. No, it's a
Yeah.
dramedy, but I don't know. I feel like the sci-fi aspect of it isn't even, especially now for the 2020s. It's not even that science fictiony.
What's sad is, when I was watching it, um, I mentioned to one of my coworkers, he was like, "Oh, you're watching the Truman Show?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, I feel like this kind of like predated like true reality television almost, and now we're just like so far gone in this dystopian hellscape of reality television that this idea is honestly not that wild. I mean, there's that show on like TLC, MILF Manor, where it's a bunch of older women who are trying to get younger men, and the plot twist is it's their sons. Like that is like Truman Show esque.
Well,
Like, I mean, at least the Truman Show was kind of classier than that, honestly. But
what's crazy to me is you mentioned that, but I remember in 30 Rock, they had the whole running joke of a show on the network being called MILF Island. And so now the fact that there's literally a real reality show called MILF Manor makes it just kind of insane that 30 Rock was in the 2010s. It took 10 years. That's how long it took to devolve this far. My
is 30
God.
Rock going to be the new Simpsons? Just going to predict everything?
I mean, maybe if it had ran for 50 fucking years, it could have. I mean, my God. I like The Simpsons as much as the next. Well, I I like I like the first 10 or seasons of The Simpsons as much as the next guy. But come on,
So, to kick things off and get everybody in the right mood for the Truman Show, we're going to go to this week's cocktail. And we had talked about this, I think it was two ish episodes ago. We had kind of talked about like spritzes having their day and espresso martinis. So, this week we're doing an espresso martini. Reason being, I was looking online and I was kind of looking at like chocolate themed cocktails because one of the things when we watch these movies, I think, and I'm like, what did we drink? What did we eat? Like, what's like a theme? And so in this movie, there's a, there's a lot of product placement in the movie, like blatant, like as a gag. And so Truman's wife in the movie, Meryl, multiple times like turns to camera and like it mentions, I think it's Mococoa.
yeah.
She's like, make this Mococoa drink for me from the mountains of Nicaragua or something. And so to go with that, I was looking at chocolate themed cocktails. And so there was an espresso martini, but you dust a little chocolate dust on top. And to get a little bit more chocolate, I had these like chocolate coffee bitters that I bought when I was in Jackson Hole, from like a little local spot. So I was like, oh, let me spruce it up a little bit.
I didn't even think to put. I have chocolate bitters. I didn't even think to dash those in. Feel foolish now.
Oh shit, this is bussin'. I said I said last time that I never had an espresso martini, but even what I feel like was just a half-assed one, it's fucking good.
Now, what were your proportions?
So I did I follow liquor.com over here. I did 2 ounces of vodka, a half ounce of coffee liqueur, 1 ounce of I used just cold brew that I brewed in the fridge, and then a half ounce of simple syrup. And then I did like 5 drops of the coffee bitters, and then like just a light dusting of like I have like this Starbucks chocolate powder, like hot cocoa powder that I got
Yeah,
from
yeah.
Costco or some shit. I don't know, but I just dusted that lightly on top.
Yours sounds like the way to go. Mine was, mine was. I did it was 2 ounces of vodka, half ounce of liqueur, and a half ounce of coffee, and that was it. So my first sip, I was like, "Oh,
A little,
this
a
boy
little
got some.
strong.
This boy got some kick." I mean, now that I'm deeper into it, it's faded. It's faded a bit, but
I mean, so I was gonna say it kind of reminds me of like a White Russian, and that makes sense because I think isn't a White Russian like 2 ounces of vodka, an ounce of chocolate or coffee liqueur, and an ounce of like heavy cream or milk or
yeah,
whatever.
something like that.
Okay, so it's like one ingredient swapped.
Yeah,
It reminds me of that a lot. With the chocolate though, I think it adds a little extra dimension to it. Maybe if you made do they have a White Russian with chocolate milk? Because maybe you'd be
I don't know.
very close to this, I feel like.
I do. I didn't realize it was an espresso martini, but I've been doing like cold brew coffee with liqueur, and some chocolate bitters for a while now. Sometimes I'll even, if I'm feeling bougie, throw a little bit of peanut butter whiskey in there too. The peanut butter with the chocolate bitters and the coffee kind of tastes like a little Reese's cup.
Mm.
Yeah, that shit slaps.
I had a plant-based Reese's cup yesterday. Um, was pretty good actually. The chocolate
Aren't
just
they?
tastes a little
Aren't they all
different.
plant based?
I'm not sure.
I guess maybe like
Oh no, it's the milk chocolate. Sorry. So there's no.
that's
It's like
okay.
vegan at that point, but
Gotcha. Okay,
so it
it's
was
the
like an
vegan
oat chocolate.
Gotcha. Okay.
The
Okay.
chocolate tastes a little bit different, but it was still pretty good. I'm sure it was like five. I didn't look at the price tag, but I'm sure it was like $5 compared to like 250 for the the regular
We had a
two pack.
we had a teacher in high school that would make homemade peanut butter cups. And I will say the only thing was that the chocolate was never like as it was never sweet enough chocolate. Like the chocolate always tasted too bitter, but otherwise pretty good.
If you want to make yourself a espresso martini, check the show notes below, get the recipe, and hit up the casker links to get some vodka, some coffee liqueur delivered directly to your door. You can check out The Truman Show on Showtime as of recording, because we're going to spoil it. The Truman Show is a 1998 dramedy film. Currently sits at an 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb. It's directed by Peter Weir, written by Andrew Nicole. It stars Jim Carrey, Ed Harris, Laura Linney, Noah Emmerich, Natasha McClone, Holland Taylor.
Paul Giamatti's in there.
Oh, that's right.
Not a star, but he is in there. Oh, let me tell you what my wife said. This is fantastic. She wanted me to bring this up. I think she's gonna feel bad that I did. So she walked down as I'm watching the movie. It's the scene where Truman and his buddy are talking. It keeps cutting back to Paul Giamatti and Ed Harris in the booth, and then back to those two, just kind of whatever they're talking about, trying to figure out life stuff. I can't remember the exact part of the movie. My wife looks and goes, "Is that a young Will Ferrell?" I'm like, "What? No, it's not Will Ferrell. What are you talking? No, like the best way I could describe what is his name? It's Noah Emmerich. I remember him. He was the assistant coach in Miracle.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And he was on a show my wife and I loved called White Collar.
Okay.
For the few people that probably remember watching that show. I was like, no, he was like the bad guy in White Collar. And I'm explaining this to her. She's like, no, not him, the other one. And I'm like, wait, what? Are you talking about Jim Carrey?
Jim
She
Carrey.
goes, yeah, that's the one from Bruce Almighty. I'm like, that's not Will Ferrell at all. So then Paul Giamatti comes on the screen, and I said, oh, look, and a young Paul Giamatti. And she goes, oh, yeah, he was in that movie. I'm like, yeah, he was in Big Fat Liar. She goes, no. He was in Secret Agent Cody Banks with Frankie Muniz. I said, no.
That's
He was in Big Fat
Liar.
Liar with Frankie Muniz. She goes, wait, was Frankie Muniz in both of those? Yeah. Well, he was in the one where he gets pushed in the pool and it dyes in blue. Like, yeah, that's big fat liar. uh, I was like, where are you right now?
The Truman Show is the story of Truman Burbank, the star of The Truman Show, a 24-hour-a-day reality TV show that broadcasts every aspect of his life without his knowledge. His entire life has been an unending soap opera for consumption by the rest of the world, and everyone he knows, including his wife and his best friend, is really an actor paid to be part of his life. The Truman Show was nominated for 3 Academy Awards: Best Actor in a Supporting Role for Ed Harris, Best Director for Peter Weir, and Best Writing Screenplay written directly for the screen, Andrew Nicole. Is the number 137th movie on the IMDb Top 250, and it is number 191 on Letterboxd. You'd seen this film before, right? I feel like you were a little surprised, so that I
It
hadn't
had been
seen
a
it.
minute. We watched it in maybe psychology and sociology. It was a movie we watched it in, and then we had the whole discussion of like, the morality of, I guess, like, the idea of someone not even knowing that they're part of a TV show. Was it is it a good thing or bad thing, that whole, discussion? Kind of the
Mm.
thought of like, he has the freedom to do whatever he wants, but not really. He's not really free, but he has everything he could ever want.
Yeah, where what does Christoph say? Oh, he can leave anytime he wants, and then he tries to leave, and they're literally trying to drown him.
Yeah, if he wants to leave bad enough, he could leave anytime he wants.
So, having not seen this film, I think I told you like it's kind of hyped up for me. I know it's on a lot of like, so Letterboxd has been doing this thing where they do like 4 favorites, and they just ask people like, oh, like what are your 4 favorites? Because that's like what their thing on your profile on their website is. And so people will give their 4 favorites, and a lot of people have been saying the Truman Show, and I'm like, whoa, like, and people reference it from time to time. So I kind of felt like it's super hyped up. It's gonna be this awesome movie, and I'm kind of surprised I haven't seen this movie yet because it was actually really good. I read one review before I had watched the film, and somebody said not as funny as I remember, but that's not a bad thing. And I agree with that in the sense of it's labeled first as a comedy, and it is definitely not really a comedy first, I feel like. There are humorous moments, but I feel like it's definitely more of a drama film, first and foremost.
Yeah, this is a movie that, and I knew that it wasn't like a slapstick or. When you see Jim Carrey's name top billing, this is not the movie you expect to get. It had been a while. I think it's probably been since high school that I've actually watched the movie. So it's been 11 years. One, I forgot how good Jim Carrey is in this movie. Like, again, for what you think of when you think Jim Carrey, and then you watch this movie and you're like, oh, wait a minute. He actually, like, this is an pretty, like, emotionally deep role that he kind of took and really kind of ran with and did just so well making you believe it. And then in the end, when he, his last words, his good afternoon, good evening, and good night, and then he just kind of turns and walks out, and you're just like, wow, I was not expecting him to, like, I wasn't expecting to be like moved or impressed by that, but I was, I have to say.
Have you have you seen Man on the Moon or
Man on the Moon is the one where he's Kaufman, right? It's
yeah,
the Andy
yeah,
Kaufman movie.
yeah.
Yes, I've seen it. I I don't have any attachment to Andy Kaufman, so it didn't do much for me. I know he was really good in it, and I've seen the documentary of him like behind the scenes where I would say I would have walked off that fucking movie about 8 or 9 times over if I were anyone else that had to deal with him while they were making that.
And have you seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
That one I've not seen.
Okay, we should do that one next. Because both of those are like more serious
Yeah,
Jim
I
Carrey
remembered.
movies.
I know Man on the Moon is like him actually, because he goes through the part, it's the slapstick part of Andy Kaufman, and then he goes through the point where Andy Kaufman, I think it was it leukemia? know it was cancer, but I can't remember what type of cancer. And it goes through a lot more of a serious. Sorry to everyone who hasn't seen the movie Man on the Moon, about a
Or
guy
knows Andy
who
Kaufman's life.
yeah, or yeah. Sorry, I'm spoiling the life of someone who died probably a while before I was born. But Andy Kaufman, who was famous for being in the TV show Taxi, and he was also a pretty big stand up comedian. Um,
Yeah. He was on SNL too, wasn't he?
I maybe for like a year or two. I don't think he was on there for long. But anywho, yeah, he was just kind of a weird dude. Ended up getting sick and going through, I mean, a lot of serious stuff later in his life.
Well, yeah. I mean,
But I remember watching the documentary, and they were talking with Jerry Lawler, the wrestler. He was like the commentary guy. But I
yeah.
guess him and Andy Kaufman had like a wrestling match or something
Yeah.
in the 80s. And he did the movie with Jim Carrey, and he's like, I was ready to legitimately hurt this man. And I tried explaining to, because he never left character, and I tried explaining to him, you do realize, like, off screen, Andy wasn't like that. Andy and I were very friendly. We got along really well. He's like, but Jim was just an asshole the entire time as Andy Kaufman, and I legitimately wanted to wrap a chair around his head. Damn. I think the best joke I've heard about the documentary about Jim Carrey that was Timothy Oliphant was on Conan O'Brien, and he said he's like, yeah, Jim Carrey talked about being in character through making the whole movie. I'm always in character. I was in character the whole time I watched that movie, and you know what? My character hated it.
I thought going in that it would be a little more comedic, and there are very funny bits. I loved all the that we talked about earlier, the like product placement that goes on in the movie. There's bits where like when Jim starts to, or I guess Truman starts to realize what's going on a little bit when he tries to like go follow his wife and it's like, oh yeah, tell her I'm going to Fiji, and he's like starting to follow, or when he locks his wife in the car and they try to like leave. Um, there are funny moments in the film, but it is definitely more serious.
I love the rain scene where it's just raining over him, and then he walks away, and it like slowly tracks over to him.
And then just starts pouring everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot more serious because you feel bad, and I'm like, and I'm sure this is kind of like satire and speaks to the people who watch these kind of like exploitive reality shows, but like I was thinking while I was watching, I was like, does anyone ever feel bad for him besides the one girl who went on the show to like fall in love with him and tell him it's a thing? Because I mean, at the
Well,
end, they're all cheering for him, but when it's going on, I'm like, dude, like this is
they
kind
do
of
show the couple of things where people have tried to like break. Although I don't think that was as much to tell him as much as it was to like, look at me, I'm
get on,
famous.
yeah, get on TV that thing.
But if you look at, and I can't remember what was her name, Sylvia.
Lauren.
Yeah, but that wasn't her real name.
Oh,
Remember, she tells him when she's getting in the car, my real name's not Lauren. I want to say she said it's Sylvia or something.
yes, it is. It is Sylvia.
When they cut to her and she's having the conversation on the phone with Christoph, you can see like all the posters in that. It says like protest, whatever. So I'm guessing like there's probably a decent sized group that, a small vocal group. It would be one thing if like, there was a camera following you around and this and that, but like to literally be taken right from birth, stuck with a family that's not actually your family, like that's just insane.
That's the perverse part, yeah, where it's like, oh, here's your parents. Also, one of them dies at one point, shows back up 20 years later, and we rewrite him into the show because he keeps showing up, and you're just like, what the fuck, dude? I don't know. Like I like Jim Carrey. As far as his like comedic roles, It's not my favorite kind of humor. Like I don't love like Ace Ventura, and he had a lot of like, in my opinion, misses in like the mid 2000s, like Yes Man, Fun with Dick and Jane, like that sort of stuff. But
Oh, I definitely think he hit a point where he was not. I also get it because again, he was doing. I mean, you look at like what he was doing stand up wise, and then in Living Color, and then he was doing Ace Ventura, which I nostalgia love Ace Ventura, but I definitely understand that the humor is pretty immature.
even Dumb and Dumber, I don't love Dumb and Dumber.
I don't think I've ever seen Dumb and Dumber. Just never seemed like.
And I hate the Grinch movie. We talked about this. Like I something about the makeup, I just don't like it. But like serious Jim Carrey movies, I love serious Jim Carrey movies. He's such a good actor, and I feel like people always think of him as like this one, like he's a comedic actor, but I think he has such a range. And it's almost like Adam Sandler now, who's had a couple more serious roles, and it's like, oh damn, this guy is more than just the goofy dude in the room.
I think I've read something where people have said that they've found that comedy actors transition to drama much easier than dramatic actors can transition into comedy.
Because comedy is so hard. People act like comedies, and like even horror movies, they're not like good movies, but a good horror movie and a good comedy are really hard to do because the joke has to hit, the scare has to hit, and if it doesn't, like you end up with every mediocre fucking epic movie or disaster movie, like
What I think even just the I think the actors themselves just have to. I think people think dramatic acting sometimes is a lot harder than it is. Not saying that like everyone can do it, but I think if you're an actor at a high enough level, doing stuff that's more serious, I feel like is a bit easier than letting yourself be like the butt of the joke or trying to not be serious.
so what did you think, Ben, on a rewatch? Because you said the last time you watched this was like probably college,
Probably high school.
probably high school. Oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I watched it in like junior year of high school maybe. On a rewatch again and so I remember I remember my mom watching this movie when I was a kid. I think she had rented it on VHS. Honestly, probably around the time it came out on VHS. And I watched like parts of it but didn't know what the heck was going on because I was way too young to try to follow it. But then I remember watching it in high school. And I think this time around, one, the product placement stuff stuck out to me so much more. I think it's one of those movies that you tend to remember the overarching idea of it. Guy doesn't know he's stuck in a TV show, is trying to escape in that. But I kind of forgot how much the seriousness of like he's afraid of the water because he lost his dad, and like he's afraid to do this, and he's also the effort that they go through to like trick him. But then I think the other thing I really forgot is how many dumb fucking mistakes they make to basically like come right out and tell him he's on a goddamn TV show.
Yeah, like they kind of get lazy.
They get to the radio, and then he just walks in and you can see the fucking craft service table behind a wall, and they just close the wall. Like they're just like, nothing to see here. Like, no, that's pretty freaking obvious, man. Like, you literally are on the radio tracking where he is, but you can't figure out to like, oh, he's walking into a building. We should probably make sure that everything's ready to go. Just seems weird to me.
I was kind of wondering, like, was somebody doing that, or did they just fuck up?
I feel like it was a mix of one, he like Truman just kind of decided to go off script for what his day to day, oh, he doesn't go in this building, so like, we can kind of set, and then it was like, oh, he's walking by, oh shit, he's walking in here right now instead of, what he was supposed to be doing. So I think that is a big part of it. Ooh. Why am I yawning? Jesus Christ, it's not even 9 o'clock.
This man hasn't drank enough espresso martini over here.
I have not. I only had one cup of coffee today too. That's probably my problem. I normally live that like half pot of coffee life because I need it.
This man's got kids.
Got a son that wakes me up at 5 something in the morning.
Ooh.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, he's at that wonderful stage now. Yeah, I think I forgot some of the seriousness of like the stuff that happens throughout. So I remember parts of it, but the emotion that it kind of takes you through, or like when he snaps at Meryl and like then all of a sudden like he's got her at like the weird knife point. You're just like, oh shit.
the
I did not remember this getting like this heavy to the point of like he is literally losing his mind. Like I remember him wanting to leave and wanting to go to Fiji and everything like that, but I never remembered the part of it where he was just like loses it and
Yeah, what was it? The peeler scraper.
the peeler cutter something all in one.
Yeah. We've talked about like Jim Carrey as well, but Ed Harris's character in this is so good but bad at the same time. Like Ed Harris does a great job in the role, but his character is such an asshole as like this dude playing God basically.
Yeah, and I will say I did love the symbolism of where they finally get to that point where he's like let me talk to him and he's just like Truman, you can talk to me. And he's just like looking up in the sky like he's actually talking to God.
Yeah.
And he's just like what is all of this? This is a TV show. What who am I? You're the star. It's just like, man, yeah, it's like he's having a conversation with God. Who is this? This is the creator. Anytime someone refers to themselves as a creator, the creator, automatically a douche, right? I don't think there's anyone that's like, I'm the creator, that you're like, oh, this guy seems like a normal dude. This dude
This guy's
definitely
down to
isn't full of
earth.
himself. That was a. I wanted to check IMDb. He talks to that guy on the TV show. Was that Harry Shearer?
Yes.
Oh, it was. I called it. I told my wife, I'm like, I think that's Harry Shearer. And she goes, who the hell is that? I'm like, oh, that's fair. That's fair. If you don't follow The Simpsons and you don't know like Spinal Tap or anything like that, like yeah, it does kind of it doesn't really mean much, but okay, cool. All right. I'm proud of myself for catching Harry Shearer in the wild.
For having not seen this movie, I don't know if it was like watching TikToks or just like, I mean, I've ingested so much fucking like film, cinematography, like media in my lifetime. The like, good morning, and if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Like that bit, the end scene where he like hits the wall and like is walking along with the water edge, like all of that is like I've seen all of that and I like knew it. And when I saw it happen, I was like, oh shit, that's from this movie. Like, like
Yeah.
this movie has those like iconic moments that you didn't really realize that were in there.
Well, that was even like the rain, like I said, the rain scene. I was like, I feel like I've seen them do that in other things too, where it's kind of been like the play on that, where it just kind of rains over one person, and as they move, it just kind of tracks them. But yeah, there is a lot of things that definitely did become either parodied or just used in I don't know what I don't know that it was really ever like memes of it, but like I do know that the thing of him walking around along like the edge of the world really has been used in a bunch of different stuff. I loved the when they're sitting there and they're talking and like all of a sudden his wife tries to get him to go to bed and the two security guys are just like, you never see anything anyways. Like how much like you're just tuning in to watch the man sleep. Like it's like, oh man, I can't sleep. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I guess I'll turn on the Truman Show and see what's going on. Oh, what do you know? Truman's just sleeping. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, the or like the old ladies who have the like pillow. They're just like sleeping at one point. You're like, is
Yeah,
this
well, they're just sleeping when he's sleeping with the TV on.
wait, what? This is interesting. Um Kind of makes sense though. Ed Harris and Jim Carrey never met during the filming.
I mean, I would believe it. They're never on screen together.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm like, okay, it makes sense, like that they didn't meet, but like, damn, like they were never on set at the same time, I guess.
I love the Trumania bit when Truman draws on the mirror with soap was completely improvised. They said in another take he drew long curly hair and a dress.
That's interesting.
Truman was supposed to be just out of high school, but since Jim Carrey was in his 30s, it got swapped from teenage angst to more of a midlife crisis. I feel like this movie would be way more interesting if Truman was a teenager.
Yeah, but I'm like, who? What I was gonna say was I'd be interested to see who else was considered for the role.
I don't know. I wonder if he was signed on that early. Oh, Jim Carrey was his first choice.
Okay. Did you see the one that said, according to a 2008 New York Times article, psychologists in Britain and the US reported a number of people experiencing Truman syndrome or the Truman Show delusion, the belief that they are the unwitting star of their own reality TV show. Reportedly, many afflicted specifically mentioned the film in therapy. More recently, on September 16, 2013, the detailed account of one Ohio student who suffered from years of the Truman Show delusion was documented in the New Yorker magazine article Unreality Star by Andrew Morantz.
I remember hearing about that because I think that would have been 2008. I think that was a couple years before we did the whole, like, we watched the movie in school, and I
Yeah.
think that was also talked about because I think when we talked about it in psychology, that was another thing that, like, we talked about with it was the fact that people believed that that was like a new-ish, although I guess it's really like a thing of schizophrenia, but one of the big things of delusions was people believing they were the star of like a TV show, or like people were watching them. Huh. This is interesting. Dennis Hopper was originally cast as Kristoff, but walked off set after his first day. He later went on to a supporting role in Ed TV, which is a movie that's kind of similar, where a video store clerk agrees to have his life filmed by a camera crew for a TV show.
Yes, I've heard of Ed TV.
Looking at it, I was like, I don't think I've heard of this, but then I looked at the thing for it and I see the poster and I'm like, actually, I do think I've seen that. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's Matthew McConaughey.
The original script was darker and had crucial differences from the shooting draft. The city was not a utopian society, but there were staged criminal incidents. Truman had a drinking problem. It stated clearly that Truman makes love to his wife. Christoph's intention was that Truman was to have Meryl impregnated and the child would carry on the show. There were more clues that helped Truman realize the truth. The scene where Truman confronts Meryl was far more aggressive. Finally, and most importantly, after Truman passes the door, he meets Christoph and the main cast members on a rooftop. While in the film, the story ends with Truman's exit from the fake world. In the encounter at the rooftop, which was in the script, the actors stare at him sheepishly, but Truman, in his rage, attacks Christoph and tries to strangle him, but the rest of the actors hold him back. He is finally reunited with Sylvia.
Huh. Damn. That's pretty dark.
Ben had seen this film, but I had not. So you're going to get one fresh review and one nostalgia rating and an updated rating. I'll go first.
Yeah, you have to. You're the goob.
I'm the goob, the soul goob. Yeah, I know I talked about up front that this movie was kind of hyped up, but then looking at like IMDb and Letterboxd and it only being in like the 130s, 190s respectively on IMDb and Letterboxd, I'm surprised. I really enjoyed this one. I think it's they advertise it as a comedy, but I don't think it's quite a comedy. Jim Carrey kills it. I think this was a role perfect for him. His quirky kind of humor, zany yet serious persona that he does so well fits perfectly with this idea and this movie. I think this movie hits a little harder. Like I said, the one review I read, not so much as funny now, but more so like the idea and the concept of this 24-hour reality show about somebody from birth till death in this perverse reality show world we live in fits so much well. Like it's more poignant today, I would say, even though
It's a
they're
more fitting social commentary now than it was
yeah.
when the movie was made. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. All of the supporting cast does really well. Never in this movie was I like, man, this is really taking me out of it. Which is funny because that's kind of like what the movie is about. It's like getting taken out of the seeing how the sausage is made, sort of, so to say. I mentioned that there's so many iconic like scenes and shots in this film. End scene is so beautiful, and there's so many moments of this film that are just kind of like beautiful, where they like sit in the moment, and you're like, damn, I kind of forget that this is a comedy, sort of. And I really enjoyed this one. I'm excited to watch this one again. I'm not gonna rush and watch it, but I definitely will watch it soon again and get like another chance to digest this one. I'm gonna give this one a 9 out of 10. I think this lived up to the hype, and I think it was better than honestly what I was hyped up for me. Highly recommend it.
I feel like most people I talk to, I know I was shocked that you hadn't seen it, but if it weren't you, like, obviously we started this whole podcast because Cam hadn't seen a lot of movies. If Cam would have told me I've never seen the Truman Show, I'd have been like, yeah, okay. And the sky is blue. Are we just stating things that are true? I don't know. When you said you hadn't seen it, I was kind of surprised. But I think I had this movie probably around like a 7 going into it. I like I said, I remembered the plot. I remembered the overall. I wouldn't say there's nostalgia for this movie. I think this is a movie that if you don't rewatch right away, when you go back and watch it, you'll find yourself probably rediscovering things that even though you probably did catch them when you watched it the last time, you're catching them again and it feels like you're catching them for the first time, which is something I really enjoy about movies. I don't want a movie to be forgettable, but I like it when rewatching it after a period of time, you don't know everything and there's still something that, like the product placement. I'm sure I remembered it. I'm sure I caught on to it when I watched it the first time, but watching it this time around, I was like, man, that really kind of pulls at you for, the clue of like, hey, this should be pretty telling. If we're witnessing it twice in like a 1 week span, how often is his wife doing this? How often is she just the product placement person?
Yeah. Or his friend. He's like, now that's a beer.
Yeah, yeah. The more I see about Jim Carrey, his personality fits so well with playing that type of character where like, yes, he's goofy and he's slapstick and he's got this upbeat personality, but behind the scenes is a little bit there's more going on than just what you're getting out of you know the clown. There's a lot under the makeup. He shines through really well in this movie. Huge props to him. 8.5 out of 10. Good movie. Highly recommend. If you haven't seen it, check it out. If you have seen it and it's been a minute, give it a rewatch because there's probably some things in there that you don't remember or you just missed the first time around, and it's worth going back and trying to catch some stuff.
If you enjoyed this, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Check us out on Instagram at Cocktails and Classics Pod, and check out the new website, www.cocktailsandclassicspod.com. Hit the show notes below. If you want to make an espresso martini, hit the casker links. Get yourself some vodka and some coffee liqueur delivered directly to you. Share us with your friends and family. Rate us, subscribe us. Please leave a rating. It really helps us out. Review us. We would be greatly appreciated wherever you listen. And check us out next time. As always, watch responsibly.